There's someone outside. That usually happens because it's the outside, you know? Hey guys, welcome back to Purgatory.
Purgatory.
And today, you know what we're going to be doing because you saw the title. Because I am procrastinating filming my video essays. I have like 3 of them. Not happening. Since it's Pride Month, today I tried my best to do the lesbian colors. It's not, just ignore it if you can. I tried really hard on the colors, but they just didn't turn out very well. It looks much better in person. Let me tell you, if you saw it in person, you'd be like, those are, I know those colors. But this isn't in person, is it? I feel like it's been a couple months, but I asked y'all on TikTok for your Merlin theories, and I gave you a warning. I gave you a warning that I was going to take them seriously, so if you mean them as a joke, keep in mind that I'm taking them seriously. And so now we are going to be treating them seriously, and we're going to judge them, rank them. I don't know what I'm titling this yet. Let us look. Balinor said that Merlin is the son of the earth, sea, and sky, and makes me think Hunith is Mother Nature. Look, y'all, I gave you the warning that I'm taking them seriously, so if you're gonna complain that I'm taking them seriously, go outside and touch grass or something. I don't know. I, of course, do not think that Hunith was intentionally written to be Mother Nature or anything like that. Because we're talking about, you know, like, if it makes sense. I do not think that when they wrote Hunith that they said that they're gonna do that little thing, and if let's see if people notice it. I do not think she was intentionally written that way. However, sometimes I don't know if that's what you guys mean or not. If you mean like I think that that's what they meant, that they wrote her like that, and like I think that that's how it is. Or if you mean like this is just my headcanon, and I'm not saying that it is canon. It's just that's how I choose to see it. I never know. So I don't think this makes any sense in canon because I don't think that they wrote her like that they intentionally wrote her like that they thought of that and wrote her, you know what I mean? And also I just don't see why she would be. You might say because he's so powerful, and why would Balinor be the only one that gets to, you know, like fuel Merlin's powers, make him so powerful? And I do have an answer for that for you, and that is misogyny. It's rampant in the show. I'm sorry, but it is. I still need to get to work scripting that video.
Oops.
I think she's just a normal peasant woman, whatever you want to call her, villager, who met like a super powerful dragon lord. And Balinor became Merlin's father, and so he passed on all that power to him. I'm sorry, I don't think she has, and you know what I mean? But putting that aside, putting canon aside, like with the writers, all that, I do think it's a cool idea, and I do like it. And you could say that makes it make more sense, because Merlin's so ultra powerful. He's the most powerful sorcerer to walk the earth ever. Literally ever. So it makes sense that both of his parents are very powerful beings. However, I don't think that they wrote her like that. I think they wrote her as just a normal, non-magic, you know what I mean? And also, we don't really entirely know why he's the most powerful sorcerer ever to walk the earth. He essentially is a god. Like, I know that we joke around about that, but if you take in all of his powers, all of his abilities and everything, he is essentially a god. So, like, while it might make sense because both of his parents are very powerful, I don't think even with that he would be who he is, you know what I mean? Like, if Hunith was Mother Nature, that actually would make sense because Mother Nature is technically like a god, right? But I don't think that if we were given a Mother Nature character, that it would be as, and I'm sorry, Hunith, because I love you, as plain as Hunith is. I'm sorry, I love her. But anyways, we must move on. My brain's off today. My theory is that Kilgharrah used Merlin for revenge against Uther in some way. Yes, he helped, but sometimes his help was very, yeah. I mean, this isn't very much a theory as much as it is canon, is it not? Kilgharrah did help Merlin, as they said. However, there was literally a whole episode and a half, maybe, about how Kilgharrah used Merlin to escape the cave and take revenge on Uther by destroying Camelot. So he did use Merlin to take revenge on Uther. Again, a whole episode and a half about it. Theory that everyone in the kingdom thought Gwen, Merlin, and Arthur were all in a relationship together and were just like, shrug. Once again, let's go over canon and let's go over me. I don't know, fanon? I do not think that they intentionally wrote it like that. That they intentionally wrote their relationship like that. And that they intended like everyone in the kingdom to see it like that. Maybe you just said that you have the theory about everyone in the kingdom sees it like that. Not that they are like that. So I'm going to judge it, read it as that. So going over like canon and writers first, I obviously very much do not think that they intentionally wrote it to seem like everyone believes that. I don't think they were like, oh, we're gonna have everyone believe this, that they wrote that in there. I think it purely exists in headcanon, and in a sensible headcanon. I do think that the headcanon makes sense, but I do think it's a headcanon. And then thinking like show-wise, that would have been a very normal thing at the time. Servants are just always with the royalty, especially with the king or the prince. Their servant or a servant is always going to be with them because they're going to wait on them hand and foot and do whatever it is that they want for them. And they also know or suspect that Arthur and Gwen are a thing before they become king and queen. So Merlin just has to be there as Arthur's manservant all the time. And then Gwen and Arthur are together and fancy each other. So yeah, they're all three going to be there at the same time. It just makes sense. I think that was probably quite a normal thing at the time. So I do not think that they would have thought that. Realistically. Now, do I have the headcanon that everyone thought that they were all in love? Yes, very much so. Even with how normal that was at the time for like a manservant to always be waiting head and foot on the royalty, just the way that their relationship was, Merlin and Arthur. If the people of Camelot had seen their relationship and their little moments, then I do think that it would make sense that they would see that they would see that and be like, it's a little sus. If things were different in the way that I don't think the writers were writing anything intentionally, and I use these air quotes very, very aggressively, intentionally queer, or at least not in the way that they wanted you to see it that way. I don't know how to explain this. I will though. There's no, at least clear queerness in the show. It's all like you can read into it and then see it kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like they don't put any characters like that into the show or mention it or anything. And you can guess that there might have been homophobia around that time or something like that. You might not, because things that would be obvious for that time, such as like racism against people of color, the like mistreatment of people of color in the show seems to come from classism before it comes from racism. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that's racist against people of color, just against magic users. So then why would we have homophobia? You see what I mean? Like it's all... So do I think that they wrote it like that and intended it to be like that for you to see that and be like, oh, I understand, I see that and I understand. No, I do not think that. Do I think it makes sense for the world that we are given by the writers? No, I do not think that. Do I think that it would make sense if Camelot had seen all of like the Merthyr like moments and all that stuff? Yes, however, they didn't. So it doesn't matter because they never or rarely ever saw a relationship outside of like a friendly manservant and prince/king relationship. Is this 3 or 4 or 5? I don't know. Do I think that it would make sense if the world was a little bit different or we had a little bit more, information into the background of the show, of the characters? Yes. Do I support this headcanon? Yes. Nimwe's death led to the progression of Morgana's magical abilities. That could make sense in the way of, I don't really know how, magic in the old religion totally works. So I could, my point is, I think it would make sense of if a high priestess died, that the next incoming one would, have their magical abilities, skyrocket or just up in some way. However, I think that Morgana's magical abilities progressed because Merlin and Arthur's destiny was progressing. I think Morgana's magical abilities were progressing because everyone was progressing. Everyone's destiny was progressing to lead to the big moment. Morgana's always had bad nightmares, but they always seemed to stay the same level of bad until Merlin came to Camelot, and then things started progressing. He started protecting Arthur more, things started happening more around Arthur and Uther, and then suddenly Morgana's abilities started progressing. So her abilities seemed to stay the same until Merlin got there, started interfering, and now her abilities are going up because Merlin and Arthur are starting to get closer. Merlin's now here, so everything is starting. Their destiny is finally taking off. So now it is time for her magical abilities to come to the forefront. So that's what I think. And I think that was supposed to be like read as canon. I believe, I think that that's what they meant when they wrote it, that we were supposed to see it as that, but I could be wrong. But I'm not. Merlin is on the arrow ace spectrum, and Merlin started to platonically like Arthur after the poison flower thing. Okay. Do I think that the writers wrote it like that, intended it to be read like that? No, because we were given Merlin falling in love with Freya, and we were given that there's literally a whole episode based around that, so he could be on the ace spectrum, but not arrow. Do I think that they intentionally wrote him to be read as ace? Do I? No, because I was going to say, because of like how they write him, how they have him act and everything. However, everyone seems to act that way because I just don't think that they're allowed or wanted to talk sexually in a family-friendly show. So I don't think that they intended him to be written like that. But now, do I think that it makes sense, that the arrow ace thing makes sense? Yes, I do. Because, and I don't even know what it is, but if you just compare Merlin to like Arthur or Uther or like really anyone else, Gwen, he just doesn't seem to have lust in the same way, even though we aren't really shown them having lust, I think. I don't know how to explain it. I was going to say that that could be because he's too focused on Arthur and protecting him, and he has too many things to do, basically. What about Arthur? What about Arthur, though? He is a prince. But also, I don't think that that would stop him. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? As for Arrow, I mean, we literally see him loving Freya romantically, so I don't really know that that makes sense. He clearly really loved her, and the love that you can have after really not knowing someone. She was very similar to him, and they connected very deeply even without knowing each other really. So can you love someone like that without really knowing them? Yes. It's just a different kind. But then we get Arthur, and you know how I feel about that. And it was actually intended to be semi-canon in the way that they wanted you to see it like that or read it like that. That's a whole nother issue, but to me, it doesn't necessarily make sense. However, do I support these headcanons? Absolutely, I do. I am never against people headcanoning characters, fictional characters, as like themselves. I'm never against that unless you're a bad person, like, I don't know, like a Nazi or something. Then also there's the second half. Merlin started to platonically like Arthur after the poison flower thing. I do absolutely agree with that in the way that I do think that he started to like Arthur, and it would it would be platonic at this time, or just in general, whatever you want to call it. I do think after the poison chalice episode, where Arthur risked his life to save Merlin, I do think that that is where the relationship really started, where they really started to look at each other differently and be like, you're different than what I thought. And where they really start to connect and see each other as, actually, maybe this is a good person. Maybe I judged them too harshly or too quickly. And even if they are more than platonic, whether canonically or it's a headcanon or whatever you want to call it, even if they are more than platonic, at this time they wouldn't have been. So do I agree with the second half? Absolutely. Do I think that it was supposed to be written that way? Yes. Do I support it? Absolutely. Do I think it makes sense? 100%. Hunith has to be magical, and personally I feel like she's a seer. The only reason that Uther didn't kill Gaius for using magic is because he's in love with him. He killed all other sorcerers, not letting them renounce magic, but he let Gaius renounce. And Gaius let Uther get away with killing almost all of his people. Why would he do that if not love? Once again, I do not think that Hunith was canonically written to be magical. I do not think that they wanted us to view it like that. I don't think that they intended it when they wrote it. I don't think that they ever thought about that when writing it. I have no idea why she would be a seer. I don't think we're ever given anything that would point to that ever. Do I think that that's what they meant it as when they wrote it? No. Do I support it? Sure, why not? I don't care. But do I personally believe it at all? No. Do I think it makes sense? And no. I don't see why she has to be magical, unless, again, we're trying to be like, well, Merlin's the most powerful sorcerer ever. Why would that be? I don't think we're really thinking sensibly here, especially since the Dragon Lord thing can only be passed father to son. Come on, it's literally just from the son. And then, personally, you feel like she's a seer. I don't see why. I don't see why. If you want to believe that, I'm more than okay with that, obviously. But I don't believe that, or think that it makes sense. The only reason that Uther didn't kill Gaius for using magic is because he's in love with him. He killed all other sorcerers, not letting them renounce magic, but he let Gaius renounce. And Gaius let Uther get away with killing almost all of his people. Why would he do that if not love? Okay, do I think that the writers intended it to be read that way or intentionally wrote it that way to be canon in any way? Absolutely not. Do I support it? Why not? I don't care for any non-harmful theories as long as you're not saying, I 100% think that this is how they meant it. Because then I get a little irritated because I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Am I on 2 or 3? Uh-oh. Do I think that it makes sense? Perhaps. Because I see what you mean, because he didn't let any other sorcerer renounce magic. Why would he do it with him? And, like, I see it. I get what you mean. But, and I started saying this in my last video, but I cut it out because I didn't want the video to be too long, but I'll say it now. We, just as a society, seem to center love around romance. That the most important, the most prevalent love is romantic. And we search for it everywhere. We look for it everywhere. But it is not always that. Not all close relationships, not all intimate relationships are romantic. However, the reason I didn't say this in the last video is because I didn't want it to come off as if I'm trying to say that...
Why can't guys just be guys? Why can't guys just be friends? Why is it always romantic?
Because I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I see almost every single relationship, and it doesn't matter what gender they are or anything. I even see siblings, yeah, paired romantically because they have a relationship that isn't just acquaintance, that isn't just like, oh, we're acquaintances. I think Gaius was just there from day one. He was always there. He was always a friend. He was there when the whole Igraine mess went down. And let me remind you guys, Uther and Gaius are friends for a reason, and it's because they're not so dissimilar. The reason they are friends is because they're so similar. They are very similar. If we're going off of bad guys in the show, top 1 Uther, top 2 is Gaius. And I said what I said. He sees basically nothing wrong with a mass genocide of his people, of just people in general. It doesn't even matter if they're his people or not. And he actively helped and helps Uther with the original genocide and then now continuing it and defends it and defends him to Merlin, whose kind is being hunted by him. They're so close because they are just about the same person. And Gaius has been there since day one. Uther said, well, since the Igraine mess went down, I'm going to make magic illegal because magic is clearly evil. And then Gaius agreed with him and helped him carry out his genocide. Of course, he would let Gaius renounce. Of course, he'd let Gaius renounce his magic. He agreed with Uther and then helped him carry it out and then said, I won't do magic ever again. Of course, he let him renounce it. Makes sense to me. Also, let us not forget that Uther is a maniac. So yeah, I mean, if you want to believe it, then that's completely fine. But I don't think that they intended it that way at all. I would say that they 100% didn't intend it that way, but I can't say that, obviously. And I'm not delusional not to say that. I could say that. So, like, the whole his devotion to Uther makes no sense other than being secretly in love. Yeah, it does. Because not all devotion equals romantic love. I'm sorry. I don't get that. Uther went after people like Balnor not just because of magic, but because they were noble and wanted more land for money. Do I think that they wrote it to be intentionally read like this or whatever? No. Do I support it? Why not? Though it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So 3, do I think it makes sense? In the way that I see what you meant, but I do not agree. I don't think it entirely makes sense. Let's explain why. Why not? The whole point is that Uther has extreme bigotry towards magic. That he hates it so much that he led an entire genocide on it and that it controls every aspect of his life. His hatred for magic literally consumes his entire being and controls every aspect of his life. So I 100% think that it would be just because of magic. Because he hates it so much. I do support it in the way that why not? I don't care. Though again, I feel like it doesn't really make sense if you're watching the show. Because again, the whole point is his hatred. Not mine, but I've heard the theory that Gwen was pregnant when Arthur died and named her son after him. I can't really do the first one, which is do I think that they wrote it to be intentionally read as that or whatever, because we were never given anything like that. So I would say no, but I feel like there's no answer here for that question. Do I support it? Why the heck not? Do I think it makes sense? Yes, actually, at least with the first half with her being pregnant, because I mean, they were king and queen. And also the whole point is to have an heir, and then I think it makes sense. Sure, why not? Do I agree with it? Have I been forgetting to go over that one? I don't even remember all the things that I didn't even mean to do the finger. I don't. Do I agree with it? Sure. With the naming her son after him. Okay, we're assuming it's a son. And that she named him after Arthur. I'm kind of on the same page with that, except for the whole makes sense. I don't think it makes sense or doesn't make sense. I don't have an opinion on this really. Other than I don't know. When she named I don't know. OG Arthur is the once king, son Arthur is the future king, so Arthur did end up uniting Albion in a way, but Destiny just got it kind of confused. Do I think that they intended it to be read that way? No. Do I support it? Why not? Do I think it makes sense? No. Do I agree? No. I mean, because this is entirely a theory that Gwen was pregnant, that she had a son specifically, and that it was named after Arthur. So 3 theories based off of essentially absolutely nothing, because we were given nothing to assume that. And then Merlin waiting around at the end, waiting for him to literally resurrect. That's what we were given. He's at the lake that he, put him in. He's literally waiting for him to resurrect, not even be like reincarnated. Also, the whole Destiny, my nail just came off. Also, the whole Destiny was about him, this Arthur Pendragon. They were talking about his destiny in particular. You know what I mean? I don't know entirely how to explain it. If you want to believe it, sorry, I'm trying to glue my nail back on. If you want to believe it, headcanon it, I don't see why not. Why not? Do I think it makes sense? Absolutely not. I glued it on weird. And on camera. In Season 1, Episode 13, Merlin's life was spared because he held onto the rabbit foot Gaius gave him and his mother was targeted instead. So I have 2 opinions on this. At first, I was going to say I think that that's what they were, hinting towards, that's what they wanted you to believe, that's what they intentionally wrote it as, wanted it to be read as. However, it was very relevant. It was very, are you listening? Are you paying attention to what we're saying? Because clearly it's going to be important later on that he has to sacrifice something important. That's going to be a life for a life, and it's along the lines that it's going to be someone important to him or something like that. So it would make sense that it didn't take him. 1, because of that, but then 2, because Merlin has to stay, according to Destiny, he has to stay to protect Arthur, all that good stuff. So why would Destiny take him, Sorry, there's a hair in my eye. But then also Gaius was able to go and do the whole life for life thing, and it was his life specifically. So maybe the rabbit foot did protect him because he's the only one that see what I mean? So this is actually a good theory. I think that this is genuinely a good theory because it could be true and it could be not. They could have intentionally wrote it to be canon, to be read as that. They could have not. This is a good theory because I don't know which one. Do I think that they canonically wrote it to be read as such or whatever? Maybe. I don't know. The first I don't know here. Do I support it? Absolutely. Do I think that it makes sense? Do I believe it? Maybe. Kind of. A little bit. I'm in the middle. I like this one. I also love my own little headcanon that everyone has been in love with Merlin at some point. He pulls so many hoes. He had that wizard riz for real. He did have that wizard riz for real. He did. Do I think that they canonically wrote it to be read as such? Kind of, actually. I think he's supposed to be a very lovable person, a very lovable man. Everyone's drawn to him. Whether that be because he's such a good person or his magic or whatever. I do think that they wrote it to be read that way, to be seen that way. I do think it was intentional that they wanted everyone to love Merlin in whatever way. And it does seem that everyone who is drawn to Merlin like that and that he lets in, it is a deeper relationship than the typical friendship or acquaintances. You know what I mean? He did pull so many hoes. He did. Do I support it? Yeah. Do I think that it makes sense? Yeah, a little bit, because you did specifically say in love, so I assume you mean romantically. So a little bit. I'm just a little bit, I don't know, but mostly, yeah, it makes sense. Do I believe it? Yeah, personally, yes. Merlin gave Arthur's soul to Avalon, which made Merlin immortal in return. Ooh, ooh, ooh. To be entirely honest, I can't speak on this one too much, because I originally thought that at one point we were told that, Merlin's, name, real name, whatever you want to call it, Emrys, means immortal, but then I was told by someone in Alive that they didn't remember that ever happening, so I could have made that up. Because I don't think that us seeing him, in the last episode, at the very end of the last episode, was the first of us being told or shown or whatever that he's immortal. But maybe it was. Wait, but I don't know why him giving Arthur's soul to Avalon would make him immortal. This judgment is going to be very loose. Very, very loose, but let's go over it because I have to. Do I think that they canonically wrote it to be read that way? I don't know, leaning towards no. Do I think it makes sense? Not really, in the way that I don't know why Merlin would be made immortal if he gave his soul to Avalon. I don't understand that. Do I support it? Why not? Do I believe it? No. There's a specific spell to turn you into an old woman? Is that not... Did we not already get an episode like that? Is that not what happened with the Dolma? Isn't that what happened with him turning into the Dolma? It was him turning himself into an old woman? Wasn't he used a spell for that? Sorry, maybe I'm dumb. Merlin can sing, and Arthur and Gwen invited him into their bed at least one time. I don't see why Merlin wouldn't be able to sing. Why or why not? Do I think that the writers intentionally wrote it? Voided again. Do I think that it makes sense? No, but because he was raised in this little village, this tiny little village as like, a little peasant or whatever, his entire life, I don't see... You said that he can sing, so that I assume that means that he can sing well, that he sounds very, good when he sings. I don't see why he would, in the way that I don't see where he would have gotten lessons or anything like that. I'm not saying that there was no singing in the village. I'm saying if you mean singing well, to like what we know as singing well, I don't see how he would have gotten to that point, and then I don't think that... we're never shown anything or any alluded anything that he would have gotten lessons once in Camelot or that he would have the money to or anything like that. Do I support it? Why not? Do I believe it? No. And then for the Arthur and Gwen one, do I think that the writers intentionally wrote it to be... No. No. Do I think that it makes sense? Kinda, yeah. But also no. I don't think Gwen is like that. Like, I don't think that would be cool with Gwen. I don't know how to explain it. Do I support it? Yes, absolutely. Do I believe it? More no. Just because we're never shown anything about queerness, because we're never shown anything about that. We don't know if there's homophobia or not, because we literally have seen nothing about that kind of stuff. So I don't know how that would affect this theory. You know what I mean? However, every single time that Merlin says something a little bit like sus, like he's like, I know it's hard for you to understand how I feel, and things like that, Arthur gets, whoa, even to the very end. So I don't think that he'd be down in that way. Maybe in like season 5. Maybe. And I don't think that Gwen feels that way for Merlin or is interested in that at all with Merlin. But I wouldn't be surprised if she was okay with it. Anyways, queer platonic Merthyr. Well, actually, that was just what we got, isn't it? That's literally what their relationship was it not? Do I think that the writers wrote it to be intended to be seen that way? Yes, absolutely, actually. Because I know that then later they said, yeah, it absolutely is a love story, and they kept, making jokes and remarks and alludes to them being together, and they do say, I do think it was a love story between two men. Very lazy representation. It's embarrassing and it's insulting. And I don't know that they actually intended that when they were writing it, or if then later they heard theories or whatever and they were like,
yeah, that makes sense. Let's just say that we did that.
I do think that they wanted it to be seen as an incredibly passionate, intimate, deep friendship between them, even if they also intended them to, be romantic at any point in time. And because they said that they do see it as a love story between, basically saying they are queer without saying they are, and then also giving them this very intense friendship between the two of them that is unlike really any other that we see, not just in the show, but anywhere, then I guess it actually would be canon or semi-canon or just whatever kind of canon, because I guess they kind of have said that, haven't they? So, Do I think that they intentionally wrote it to be seen like that? Leaning more towards yes. Do I think that it makes sense? Absolutely. Do I support it? Absolutely. Do I believe it? Absolutely. Absolutely 100%, 200%, 300%. Yes. And there are actually plenty more that I could go over. However, the video is already however long it is. And there is one more very important. The most important one that I left for the end because I know it's going to take all my brain power. My Merlin theory is that magic is a metaphor for being queer. No wonder Merlin and Morgana are the two most queer-coded characters in the show. Whether by accident or on purpose, magic is 100% a metaphor for being queer. 200%, again, whether intended or not. Usually this is because writers and such will use something that could be very broad. It's very vague. Something that you can really relate to just about anything, like how they're doing with Spider-Verse right now. Like how they're using the Spider-Man identity and coming out with the, as Spider-Man and everything like that. You can relate that to a bunch of different things. You can relate to it not even being Spider-Man. That's what they want. That's why they wrote it like that. So that you can relate, so that you can like it, so that you can give them money. And the way that magic is talked about, the word choice that they use around magic and about magic and for magic, it would be absolutely insane to say that it isn't a metaphor for it.
I don't know what it's like to be an outsider. To be ashamed of how you were born, to have to hide who you are. Do you think I deserve to be executed because of who I am?
Again, whether intentionally or not, do I think that it was intentional? Do I think that it was intentionally written that way by the writers to be seen like that by the writers? No, because I don't think, I just don't think that passed through their head. I don't think they thought of that until later when they saw theories or something like that from fans and they were like, oh, let's hop on board with that. Do I think it makes sense? It makes sense more than anything, any theory or anything I've seen for Merlin, for a ship, or anything in general. Do I support it? Overwhelmingly so. Do I believe it? Absolutely overwhelmingly so, unless you mean canon, like it was intended to be like that. And as I said, a lot of writers intentionally do that in the way of writing something vague and broad so that you can apply it to really just anything so that it you can relate to it. I don't think that magic relates to any single thing more than queerness. Nothing more. It obviously could work as a metaphor for several different things. I'm saying I don't think it works for anything more than queerness. I think that that's the top up there. That's what makes the most sense. And I really did want to go more into it, but I literally cannot find any other words. I feel like I've said everything already, but I know that I haven't, so another video idea. That was actually really fun. I thought I wasn't going to have enough, so that's why I've been putting it off, because I didn't think I'd have enough theories. Girl, the way that this has gone on for so long, I'm just holding the glue that I used to glue my nail back together. Super quick. I would just like to thank you guys so absolutely much for all the love and everything on my last video. I'm getting all of the attention, like likes and views and comments today as I'm filming this. Right when I was getting ready, like makeup wise and everything to start filming, the comments started rolling in and I like refreshed the page like I do just to see if anything's changed, if I have any notifications. And I was kind of surprised that the video wasn't getting any traction because the other ones have been getting traction, but this one I have not made any TikToks about it or anything. But literally I just refreshed it today and all of a sudden the views are almost at 300 and I'm getting all these comments and there's so many likes. So thank you so much. It's so very kind. It's just so sweet to see, people saying that they're waiting for my big break or hoping that I blow up, because I genuinely just don't think that's going to happen. But it in the cheesiest way possible, it warms my heart because it's just nice to see that you guys believe that when I don't. But even if I don't, I still have people enjoying my work, and that's what I wanted. But this video has gone on long enough, and must end. So anyways, as a parting gift, I must warn you of something very, very important I need you to be aware of. I need you to know that you cannot trust any, and bitch, you cannot trust one, a half, you cannot trust a quarter, you actually can't trust any single bitch. If you want to thrive and succeed and you know the drill, then listen to me. And if you don't, then you'll suffer, and that's not my fault. I'm trying to give you like the key to success here. It's not my fault if you don't listen. If you watched the whole video or made it here, that's the same thing, because you wouldn't see this if you didn't watch the whole video. Oh my gosh, I can't see anything. Then thank you so much for watching. And remember to be a good person, not a bad one. And that I won't see you, but you will see me next time, of course. Why am I shaking so much?